So as I said, Jonathan Volsky, I'm the Communications and Marketing Manager for the city, and I'd like to thank you for coming to what's our third town hall on homelessness. We know this is a very important issue to residents. It's a very important issue to the city and all of these experts that we'll have up here. So just want to let you know, welcome to your community center or your civic center. Is anyone first time for anybody? All right, so I get to say that this is a 20-year plan that brought you this civic center. It's for the residents of Lake Forest. This is where our council meets, and then also we use it for events and for rentals. We've got a senior center across the way with great events, and then our community center to the right out there is available for parties and life celebrations. So it was 20 years in the planning. Developer fees paid for the bulk of it, so it allows Lake Forest to remain a debt-free city. So it's good news. Tonight, of course, the exits are in the back if there's an emergency. Restrooms are to the back and around to the right. And I'm going to turn it over to Mayor Robert Pequeno to get tonight going. Thank you. Oh, I did want to add one more thing. For questions tonight, we have some cards in the back. So really what we're hoping for is a really good discussion among our panelists who work with homeless every day. So if you have a question, Noelle is holding up the thing to fill out. So you just fill that out and hold it up, and we'll grab it, and then we'll read the questions out and really get some good answers and some good conversation. Thank you.
All right, hey, thank you. Thanks again for coming. Like you said, my name is Robert Pequeno, and I'm the mayor of Lake Forest. And so I want to introduce some of the representatives that are here tonight. So from Senator Dave Minn's office, we have Ash Alvandi and Matt Kemp. Where you at, Matt? There you are. And we also have Councilwoman from Newport Beach, Diane Dixon. And we also have our city manager, Debbie Rose. And one of my fellow council members, Mark Teddemer. And before we go any further, I want to thank Jonathan Volsky, Noel Gomez, and Nick Gates, and Ryle for putting this together. That, you know, I said, hey, this is what I want, and they tell me, okay, show up at 6:30 on Wednesday. So I want to talk a little bit about the point-in-time count video, or count. So back in February, across the county, people went out and did a count. And it's what the numbers are is just a snapshot in time, okay? If on that day Lake Forest had 200 homeless, that's what we had that day. Doesn't mean that's our resident number. So on that day, I think we had well, I'll come up to it in a second. So before I get started, this is a disclaimer that I have to put out there. The Sheriff's Department made me do this. Okay, the opinions are mine and mine alone. Anything that I bring up are mine. It's not the City of Lake Forest City Council, the Sheriff's Department, or any of the other organizations that are here today. But my main thing I want to send home today is that homelessness is not a crime. Okay, so when we talk about homelessness, everybody has a different story, and there's different forms. So to really totally understand homelessness, you have to understand who you're dealing with. So if I asked you to visualize a homeless person, maybe 90% of you will say it's the disheveled person holding a sign saying, help me, or give me some money, give me some food, whatever. Well, the truth is that's not our biggest population of homeless. That's just the visual homeless that you see. So we have the transitional homeless, which is pretty much anybody in here. You know, my wife kicks me out, keeps me away from my bank account, and I have to sleep in my car for a couple of days until I get my feet back on the ground. So that's what transitional is. They're homeless for just a small time. Then you have your episodic. That's where maybe my wife kicks me out, I'm homeless. She takes me back. She gets tired of me again, kicks me out. This happens multiple times. So that's episodic, and that's just using me as an example. Then you have your chronic. Your chronic homeless are the people that are homeless that you see all the time out there. And then this is your biggest population, is your hidden homeless. They're the ones that you'll never see. They're the ones that are living in hotels, living in cars, couch surfing, staying with a family member for temporary. So that's really your biggest number. So how do they get there? Well, we call them the knots, right? The have-nots. the can-nots, the will-nots, and then the not counted. So the have-nots have not been linked up with a nonprofit organization or something to get them stable right back onto back into normal society. The episodics or the can-nots, they can't get out of the cycle of drug use or other issues that may cause them to be homeless. And then the will-nots are the chronics where they are service resistant. They will not accept any help right now. But one of the organizations will tell you how they've been successful with the chronic homeless. And then, of course, the hidden homeless, they're another ones that are not counted. So what are the causes, right? Every homeless person has their own unique reason for being homeless. And in a minute, you're going to see a video of a person that was homeless here in the city, and now he owns a business in the city. So, and his reason for homelessness, Jonathan, can you tell everybody why he was homeless?
He got a tattoo that his stepfather did not agree with.
Right, would anybody have guessed that? It's a tattoo made him homeless? No, so everybody has a unique reason for being homeless. So, but lack of affordable housing is a leading cause for homelessness, and that's why the state is pushing really hard for our RHNA numbers, our numbers, and I think the city of Lake Forest is doing a great job of meeting those numbers. Income. Sometimes you just don't make enough. I bought my house for $169,000 in 1996, and the house next door to mine sold for $1.1 million. Yeah, I couldn't buy that house today. Domestic violence is the third leading cause of homelessness. And women are usually the biggest victims of this, but you know, they have to choose between an abusive relationship or homelessness. And they usually have children with them. Mental illness, about 30% of the homeless people suffer some type of mental illness. And then you have your substance abuse. So some simple economic issues are among the critical factors contributing to homelessness. But too many people live on the edge, and when you hear this, the Brandon is his name. Brandon tells his story on the video. He tells you most of the people he knows are one paycheck away from being homeless. So here's some misconceptions and myths, right? Alcohol and drug abuse are the root causes. Now, in Brandon's case, it was a tattoo. A person experiencing homelessness just has to get a clean job, clean up, and a place to live, and problem is solved. If it were only that simple. It's not that simple. And here's our challenge in Lake Forest. So the point-in-time count is done every 2 years. In 2019, the Orange County point-in-time count was 538, with 112 homeless here in Lake Forest. In 2022, it was 585, with 79 in Lake Forest. So Lake Forest is not anti-homeless. We're just anti-secondary effects. Homeless encampments. Okay, there's a recent case or a case decision called Martin versus Boise that basically allows for some quality of life crimes. Homeless encampment is not in part of Martin versus Boise, and we're not going to allow encampments in the city of Lake Forest. We're not going to allow assaults, retail theft, drug use or drug possession, personal property theft, and human trash and waste in public areas. So what's the answer? Well, your answer is right in front of you here. This is what we have to do. We have different government organizations and nonprofits and faith-based organizations that will help us curb the number of homeless. There was, when the numbers came out last week, there was somebody that said that, hey, we did a good job. And the person that said it was somebody that's running for office. He didn't do one thing for the homeless, right? These people right here are the ones that did it. So there's no single solution, though. They say housing first, but it won't do it. You have to, basically, you must address the underlying conditions that got them there. And money hasn't fixed the problem, because otherwise we would have fixed it. LA, San Francisco, and Seattle spend $1 billion a year on homelessness, and their numbers keep going up. So these are the people that are going to solve it for you. So we have tonight, and what will happen is, we have these panelists. They're going to come, or they're going to introduce themselves, tell you what they do, and tell you how they impact homelessness. But Madeline, I'm going to put you on the spot. When I met with you last week, you said something that was, to me, I didn't even think about. Do you remember what you said to me? And I was like, wow.
I said a lot of wonderful.
But you did. But about how everybody here does something different for the homeless. So if you don't mind.
Yeah. Would you like me to get started?
No, well, about what you said to me, and then we're going to watch something real quick. So Madeline, she said, every one of the organizations here handle just about every one of the homeless. Like Madeline, she's with Families Forward. She deals with the families, right? So usually you're transitional, right? South County Outreach and Saddleback Church, they give, well, I'm not going to give all your stuff away, but, like Orange County Rescue Mission, their biggest clients are the chronic homeless, right? And then you have the Sheriff's Department on the end. Just kidding. So that's it for right now. We're going to watch a short video.
So for you, you didn't like to take help. Mm-hmm. So what was it that started to help turn around for you? Obviously your prayer played a big role, but what were some of the services or some of the people that you met along the way that finally helped you?
Probably one of the first people I met was Robert Pequeno. He was at that time he was the homeless liaison officer. Mm-hmm. And his role in my life and others was more social worker rather than deputy. And he really was there to create friendship and build trust and help people.
So what was it about the homeless liaison officer and Deputy Pequeno at the time, now Mayor Pequeno, of course, what was it about him and what led, from meeting him to getting off the streets and becoming a successful businessman?
In that time of my life, I wasn't wanting help. The help that he could provide, I wasn't really wanting that help. Mm-hmm. But for people that were on the streets, I would, even at that time when I was homeless, I would direct them to him. And at that time, he was working with the Coast to Coast Foundation. Mm. And then, so I think somehow the Sheriff's Department partnered up with them. So they had the willpower and the funding to help pretty much whatever need came their way. Mm.
So you were on the streets a total of 4.5 years.
Yeah.
And at what point did you cold turkey become sober?
November 10th, 2012 was my sobriety date.
That's great.
Yeah, so that was 2 years in of homelessness.
What was it then that finally got you out of that tent and back into a home?
Well, my wife that was never homeless, she tells the story better than I can, but I remember I was outside of Goodwill and her exact words were I don't know why, but I'm drawn to you. And then at that time, she was the director of operations at a thrift store called Restored in Foothill Ranch. Mm-hmm. And they were doing some program to help the homeless, and she wanted to meet some of the homeless and help. And so I kind of helped set up some meetings and for people to help the homeless. And then I guess she kept we stayed in contact through phone because at that time I had a cell phone. And she just kept wanting to be part of my life or helping the homeless, and we became friends. Just a very long story short, we're now married.
Well, congratulations. So there's a bit of irony there that the tattoo led to you going through this journey and nightmare in some ways, but then a tattoo also helped get you out of it because it helped your would-be wife track you down.
Yeah, do you know what the tattoo says?
No.
Yeah. You have to read between the lines that the skin were letters.
So, well, it says Jesus, doesn't it?
Yeah.
What is it, and we can talk about, I know you help the homeless quite a bit now and open your business in your life, but what could the city or any agency be doing differently to help more people transition from the streets back into homes and jobs and everything else?
Well, I think mentorship is key for someone to I guess to be like mentor individuals who they're called to help. To you don't want to like do everything for the homeless, but you could be there and like at least point them in the right direction. But like building trust and creating friendship is key. I skipped a story. When I was homeless, my mom reached out to one of our pastor friends that we know. His name was Tristan, and he didn't have the time to like really meet with me, so he referred one of his friends to meet with me. So he actually met with me like once a month at like Denny's, and I agreed to it. So like he was like, I guess technically my mentor, like that we stayed in contact, like but mentor's key. And then if there's programs to help with like mental illness or housing, that would be awesome.
So you and your wife ended up opening a store, secondhand store.
Yeah.
And for more than 6 years now, so it's been successful. And you actually hire or let homeless individuals work in your store. Is that true?
Yeah, we have a volunteer work program where the homeless can volunteer their time to earn money for the things that they need. Like if it's like a gas card or a cell phone bill or a bus ticket. Things that we give out freely are like clothing, I'll buy food freely, toiletries, sleeping bags, bikes if we have them. But our concept, we want the homeless to get used to working for things rather than a lot of handouts. For the store, we actually had a storage unit. When our ministry first started, our homeless ministry started when I was homeless. My wife was like, you should start a Facebook page. And so we started Homeless Ministry of South OC. And there I took pictures of like me. I was currently homeless still. So I was like, just like the needs of the streets, and people started donating like sleeping bags or food or gift cards or whatever it was. And it got to a point where we needed a storage unit. So the homeless liaison officer, Robert Pequeno, he, through the Coast to Coast Foundation, helped us get our first storage unit free for, I think, 3 or 6 months. And then from then we got our second storage unit. So we had 2. Then we got rid of those 2 and got one big one. And then we did 5 garage sales a year, and to raise money for the ministry, and eventually got our own store.
Amazing. And where's the store?
In Lake Forest, in the Avila's El Ranchito parking lot.
It seems like you're focused on the theory of giving a hand up and not necessarily giving a hand out.
Right.
Is that important, and is it always successful?
It's important, but not always successful. You'll find that not that many people want to work for things when they could just hold a sign and get what they need. So for the individuals that are willing to work for things, they're the ones that we really invest our time to help further along their path. Why not, why work when you can just get everything for free? So a lot of people are not willing to work.
Yeah, our city, we've had a campaign where we say, give positive change instead of spare change. And similar to what you're saying is, instead of giving money directly to someone, give the money to an outreach or a charity that will then help them instead of enabling. So that's really, you feel critical.
Yeah.
Is homelessness ever going to be solved?
I don't know. I just heard on the news that everyone's like one paycheck away from being homeless. And so I don't know if it'll ever be solved, but be nice to, for the help to be there.
Was there a point that you realized, wow, I'm not homeless anymore and I'm never going to go back there, or did it ever?
No, yeah.
Or was it gradual?
It was gradual, I guess. So, but there was a time when I was homeless, I literally thought I was not going to be off the streets. At that time, like, I was thinking the worst. When I became homeless, I had nothing and I didn't ask for help from anyone. So I just got to see a different part of life, and that's the time where I think I actually grew the most. So really, like, for me, it was meant to be. So there's no regrets. Like, everything with my family, it all worked out. So it was a blessing, really it was.
And you'll continue to thank God for that blessing by helping others.
Yeah, every day that we're open. When we're not open, I'll be like, come back when we're open.
Even God rested on the seventh day.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you
Yeah.
so much for your time and for sharing your story. And
Okay.
Okay, so this isn't a plug for his store, but he does own a business here in the city of Lake Forest. It's called Second Impressions. It's on the corner of Muirlands and Ridge Route. It's behind the Burgertown Avila. So he's been for 6 years off the street and running a business. So it is possible to help them. They just need to have somebody in their path. And lucky for us that we have all these organizations here that are always in the path of somebody. So what's going to happen is, so Noelle told me that I need to tell you, if you have a question, she has a question card, just hold your questions up. She'll come pick them up from you, and there you go, your first one. So, and then once everybody gets done with their with their intros, so everybody's going to introduce themselves, just tell us who you are, what you do, and how you help the city, or how you help the homeless, and then we'll just go into the questions.
Thank you, Mary Pequeño. And I believe I said many wonderful things, but I'll try to pull all those out from our conversation. So good evening, everyone. My name is Madeline Hernice, and I'm the Chief Executive Officer of Families Forward. So Families Forward is unique in that we exclusively, is that me? No, that's you? Careful over there. That we exclusively serve families here in Lake Forest and across Orange County. So our services, starting in 1984, truly centered around families that are experiencing or at risk of homelessness. Some of you may know we operate a large-scale food pantry in the city of Irvine. We're very close to the Lake Forest border. Since March of 2020, we've served 22,000 families just with the food pantry alone. So definitely a lot of need, a lot of hunger and security, but truly that's a front door to services. We want to build trust, want to build relationship, and we want to ensure families that homelessness is not a crime, their children will not be taken away from them. Please come to us for support and assistance. If we can keep you housed, let's keep you housed. Let's prevent that eviction from happening. If we can get you housed quickly, let's do that. Let's keep you in your community where your support system is, and truly providing that hand up and not that handout, as was discussed. One of the great things about being here with a great group of people and all my colleagues here is that we are all strength-based. There's a lot of things that many of us do that we need to rely on each other to do well, so we're not duplicating services. And I think that's really critical because that's something that is a priority for Families Forward as an organization, but I know my colleagues here would agree with that. We don't need to do the same thing. We need to support each other and augment the work to make an impact to end that family's episode of homelessness. So a couple of things I just wanted to share about housing here in Orange County. It's not going to be new to you, but if you didn't know, it requires nearly $50 an hour to afford a median 2-bedroom rental here. $50 an hour. Now, the families that we serve, about 78% of them are single head of household, with the majority being female single head of household. As you can imagine, a single income earner, $50 an hour is not likely, and that's where we see that paycheck to paycheck scenario happening, where one domino falls. It's that situational, transitional. Something happened, medical crisis, car, job, childcare. I've got 2 little ones of my own. I know just how expensive childcare is, but that domino leads to the next domino, and that's the population that we're seeing and that we're serving, which we like to call we don't like to call, but we do call as the invisible homeless. These are families that you're not seeing. These are the families that are your next door neighbors that are sleeping in their vehicles in safe residential streets, camping at O'Neill Park. These are families that don't want to be found because they fear their children will be taken away. So Families Forward is focused on providing housing and services. We've got career coaching, financial literacy, mental health support for these families, but everything is about housing first, and then we can unpack. We can really try to focus on what that sustainability plan is. So last year alone, we served 668 families with our housing program. That's not even touching food or other supportive services, that's just housing. It's a critical need here, especially in South Orange County. And so I just wanted to create that awareness for these are your neighbors, these are the families that we're serving every day. And then my last point here is Mayor Pequeño mentioned the families that are really invisible, couch surfing, doubled up, tripled up. We've got about 32,000 of those kids in our county, 32,000. And those truly are the invisible population, working and doing their homework in a motel room. They don't technically count as homeless. So there's a lot of work to be done, and I just really appreciate all the support of my colleagues and you all in the audience for wanting to learn more about how we can get involved and truly make a difference. So thanks for your time.
Hello, I'm Pastor Max from Saddleback Church, and we have a resource center called the Peace Center at Saddleback that serves a lot of families and a lot of those that are homeless. One of the ways that I'd just love to share, how we try to approach this and help with this problem is through relationships. So when you consider the difference between a handout and a hand up, do you know what the difference is? It's relationship. If I give you a handout, that's transactional. But if I give you a hand up, that's relational. And at our church, we're very passionate about helping to equip our ordinary members to become those that can actually serve a population that's struggling and help them out. And some of our people that do things like this are people that might have been formerly homeless or have their own hurts and hang-ups that they've overcome, because we really do truly believe that healed people heal people, and that's, I think, how we can best approach it. So we have a lot of programs that do offer different structures like career coaching and community resource coaching. We've got about, 24 people that are in training to become a resource coach. So that way, when we're meeting with someone, we can establish that relationship with them and help walk them and journey them, towards whatever they're going to do. And that means we're going to partner with everybody on this panel on that journey, So we're not necessarily saying, hey, we do everything. We just try to focus on the things we can do the best. And I think one of the things that we do pretty well is encourage and give people relationship, because one of the things that I think everybody in this room could relate to is the fact that wherever you are right now is because of the relationships that you had in your past, and those relationships provided you with different types of opportunities. They say, I think it's, you're basically the sum of your 5 best friends, So I know I've had a lot of great opportunities been presented to me, and I was able to take advantage of some of those opportunities, not just because I thought I could, but because whoever was presenting it was going to help me. I felt I had the support I need to walk through those steps. And some of these things are the critical things that help people, from wherever they're at, take those next steps. Because it's really scary, like you were just saying, living on a very small income as a homeless person, to thinking about, well, in order to live in a different bracket, if you will, that's a huge canyon-size thing to overcome. So that's why I think it's real important that we look at those relationships. So up here are some great resources, but I think in those seats out there, there's also some really good resources that people could use. So just to continue on, some of the other things we do is legal aid, immigration assistance, English as a second language, and then tutoring for kiddos that are younger. So, so who knows what we can provide, but I think it's best to always look at it case-by-case basis. By the way, I'll never forget, Brent. I didn't know I knew the guy until I showed his tattoo. I was like, oh, I remember that guy.
Yeah.
He looks a lot better now.
Yeah. So before you get started, Laval, So when I started the homeless program here in Lake Forest, Saddleback Church was the first organization that I partnered with. And had it not been for Saddleback Church, I don't think the program would have survived or would have been successful. So thank you.
Good evening. My name is Laval Brewer, and I work at South County Outreach. I just so happen to be the CEO there. And I'm a little unprepared tonight. Just want to prepare you for that because I was supposed to go pick up my daughter in San Francisco, where I've seen a significant amount of homelessness. But our times got changed, so I'm going to go tomorrow morning. So I don't have as many statistics about our organization that I normally would ramble off to you. So I'm going to talk to you more about who we are, what we do, and why we do what we do. So if you want to know our numbers, that lady back there, Nikki and Tanner, they'd be more than happy to give you the numbers that we have going on. You know, we start off with a basic belief, and we believe that no one should go to bed hungry or without a place to call home. Right? When I think about that, I think about my own personal relationship with the world and with my family and with my housing. I recently told the story at one of our galas about how I and my family interacted with poverty when we were younger. And it's interesting because if you were to ask my sister-in-law, who had a conversation with my mother before she passed, she would say, "You were never in poverty. You were a middle-class black family living in Los Angeles, and you were never in poverty. You always had enough. I had a roof over my head, I had food on the table, I had a loving relationship, and we had the ability to kind of foster through the world." But I remember telling her the story afterwards. I said, "Well, you don't know that time I went to camp." And she said, "What do you mean by that time you went to camp?" I said, "Well, I went to camp, and so I went to camp with Woodcraft Rangers, if anybody didn't know that, Woodcraft Rangers. And every summer I would go to camp. And the way I went to camp was because we were low income in a sense, we qualified. I got to go for $1 a year, and I got to pay it myself. So I would go and I'd pay my $1 to go to camp. And one year when I came back from camp, we had moved. The house that we had bought was no longer our home, and we were living with my grandmother right down the street. Luckily, fortunately, I didn't have to change schools because she was close enough to our home to where the schools I had and the friends I had and the relationships that I had created still existed. And I still, we never really had one, but because my mother suddenly had a change in her relationship with her finances, she couldn't afford the house that she had struggled to buy herself and didn't have any money left over to do all the other things. So as I was telling the story, we started kind of thinking through, so what else was there? Because we have a belief at South County Outreach also that no one is just hungry. So if you're hungry, then you probably have other things that are happening in your life and in your world. And my mother had not a lot of other things happening. She just had a change in the relationship with her finances, with the business she was working in. But we were still sort of struggling, even though we were a middle-class black family who owned our home. My grandmother owned her home. My grandparents owned their home. That home is still in our house, in our family. My daughter actually lives in it. We had that home before I was born. And then I started thinking, oh yeah, we used to have government cheese. So in order to get government cheese, you probably had to have some type of assistance. And I made a really great grilled cheese sandwich out of that government cheese, by the way. It was amazing. But what I'm getting at is that sometimes things change. Now, we were lucky. I was lucky. My family was lucky that we didn't actually fall into homelessness. But we did fall out of our home. And we were struggling. And my mother was working hard to ensure that I was taken care of. And it was just me. You can imagine if she had had another child. She didn't because she said that her childbirth was not really good, and that was a bad birth. So when I think about the work that we do, and Maddie talked about a little bit about the work that they do, and we do similar work, our front door is our pantry. So if you've been to our pantry, it's kind of like a market. You literally can shop for yourself up the aisles. You take a grocery basket with you, and you get to choose your own cheese. You get to choose your own canned goods. You get to choose your own protein and your own vegetables. And the reason why I say that is because the dignity and respect that you get from practicing that are the things that carry you forward. when you go, oh, okay, I get to choose what this is. In other words, my self-control, my self-reliance, even though I'm not paying anything when I walk out, it is the practice of doing that work that we believe is so important for anyone to have that dignity, whether they can afford the food or not. And when I stand in front of churches and we talk about, what does God tell us to do and what does God call us to do? He calls us to feed our neighbors on a consistent basis. There are multiple opportunities for us to house our neighbors on a consistent basis. We are called to do something that is remarkable, and yet we often fall short because it is so difficult. So I'm really proud to sit next to all these people because we partner with almost all of you. I can't tell you how many times Maddie and I are partnering to help a family to stay housed or to put food on their table. I can't tell you how many partnerships we have with Saddleback Church. Maddie and I are in a group with Saddleback Church to feed our community, to house with others. That partnership that we have is what makes it possible for people to stay in their homes. So for us, it is really prevention. We don't spend a lot of time on homeless issues, although we help. But we feel as though if you can stay in your home, and if you can stay in the family unit, if you can stay, your children can stay in a place that gives them some type of self-control, some type of solace and grounding, that child can then carry forward in the future, that's really where we sit. We want to make sure that anyone who lives in Lake Forest, who wants to live in Lake Forest, who loves their neighborhood, who loves their city, who loves their block, has the ability to continue to do that, and sometimes people need a little bit of help. Sometimes people need a little bit of caring. And I go back to our founder, Ray Havert, who started our organization in his garage to feed people in Lake Forest 30 plus years ago. It was really about him looking at not who were on the streets, not the people on the corner, but his neighbor, his actual next door neighbor, the people around the block, the people down the street, who, when he saw them, he knew their stories because he had had relationships with them. He knew who they were. And he was able to go, wow, that person is struggling. They need something. They need some help. The way he did it was by giving them food. And that just started a process for us to help people help themselves in some way, shape, or form, which we will continue to do for millennia. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is James Brooks, and I am with Mercy House. I am the director of our emergency services programs, which is basically our shelters and our outreach programs. I am not usually the person that speaks for our agency in these sort of settings, but I'll do my best I'll go over some of the things that we do. I had actually put something together that I'm gonna have to read off my phone, so please bear with me. So Mercy House was founded in 1988 by Father Jerome Karcher, and he had a mission to provide dignified housing alternatives and services to our homeless community. It is our goal to recognize the inherent value that each of our clients holds by virtue of their humanity and stability in their lives. So we strive to be a leader in homelessness by providing a unique system of housing opportunities, programs, and supportive services. We provide programs at pretty much every level of homeless services, which include outreach, prevention, shelters, rapid rehousing, affordable housing, and permanent supportive housing. Our outreach, which I'll more or less speak on because this is what we do for South County, our outreach program in South County creates a partnership between the county and the cities, and specifically in Lake Forest, to provide services for the homeless on the street. Some of the things that we provide in our outreach are provisions for supplies, food, water, donated clothing, bus passes, gas cards, gift cards, occasionally a hotel voucher. We also can do, in our outreach, we conduct assessments of the individuals that we meet to see their level of vulnerability, to see if their eligibility would warrant them to be able to qualify for either housing voucher or possibly other programs. In engaging with the homeless, we get them enrolled into the county's what's called coordinated entry system. And that basically would provide an eventual opportunity for them to get either a housing voucher or possibly short-term rental assistance. We also, in our street outreach, engage and refer people into programs, shelters. We hope to connect them with their IDs, Social Security benefits, general relief, CalFresh, Medi-Cal. If they are struggling with their addiction and they're willing, we can get them connected into drug and rehab programs as well as mental health services. And essentially, that's what we do. So I don't want to take long, but I will speak at this point from the heart. So I came to Mercy House in 2008, some 20 years after Mercy House was started, maybe, yeah. And so actually, I was found my way to Mercy House by way of Detroit. I'm a native of Detroit, Michigan, came from a middle-class family similar to Lavelle. Never had to struggle. My dad worked a couple of jobs. He worked in the factory, and then he was a carpenter on the side, so he was always, we did pretty well. But I made some life choices that cost. I got into addiction, specifically in the 80s when the crack epidemic took over in the inner cities. I was a victim of that, and that kept me in an addiction for quite a long time. I was probably living in and out of homelessness, did time in prison because of my addiction for about 25 years. So just prior to coming to Mercy House, a person that I dated years ago back when I was in college was living in California, and our parents stayed in contact, my mom and her mom. Little did I know. But I happened to be home one day, and this person's mother called, asked about, and I answered the phone, found out that she was living out here, got in contact with her. She didn't believe that I had sort of fell off into the lifestyle that I was living at that time. Invited me to come to California when I got out here. Prior to coming out here, I heard about this place called Mercy House. Didn't know what it was. She just sent me a brochure, and it said that we help people to find their way back home. So, excuse me. I hate telling this story because I get really emotional. After I got here, I had a determination after being addicted, in and out of prison for about 25 years, of just having a really, really rough time, keep hitting bottoms and couldn't seem to get it together. I was pretty desperate. And when I came out here, I prayed that if I could stay clean today, God, you would show me what to do. So I did, and each day it got a little bit better, and about 6 months after I was here, Mercy House started the Armory Program. Up until then, they only did transitional housing. That was the motto back in that day. But we took on the Armory Program. A lot of you know it as the Cold Weather Shelter Program, and it was only going on during the winter times. So we actually, they were looking for people to work that program, and I didn't think I stood a chance. But God had a plan for me. So turned out to be my wife. We got married after I moved out here. She said, you know what? All of this is kind of divine. You coming out here, Mercy House starting up this program. You read the brochure about them helping people to find their way back home. I think you'd be an asset to the company. I did it reluctantly, not expecting to get hired, but they hired me. And within a short time, they believed in me. They said, we think you'd be a great manager. So I had doubts about that because, being in addiction and being on the streets, trust issues I had. But they convinced me that, we've got your back if you'll take this on. So I decided to go ahead and accept that position as a program manager. After a few years, I took over the entire program and then became director. And now I sit on their board. So, been here now since this is my year 14 coming up in December. And so I was able to, and I'm an anomaly, I must admit. Whoever thought I'd be sitting here in Orange County, California, I own my own home now. It's my second house I bought since I've been on my path. And I just wanted to share this story because people don't get it until they get it. So fortunately for me, I was blessed. God had a bigger plan. And when I came out here and found Mercy House, I just said, I believe I got one more good run left. And so at 68, I'm still running. So that's all I got. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Stephanie Delatorre, and I work with National Core, Hope Through Housing. So National Core is a nationally recognized nonprofit housing developer. We have, our portfolio spans all the way from San Diego to Orange County, Los Angeles, the Inland Empire, and we are in Texas and Arkansas. And so we provide affordable housing to families, adults, and low-income seniors. Hope Through Housing is the sister organization, and that's, I'm the regional director for services for Hope Through Housing in San Diego. So we provide services on site for our families and for our seniors. Services from anywhere from health and nutrition, after-school programs. Most recently, we have a big initiative in Pathways for Economic Development. So that allows families to think about first-time home buying. We really consider ourselves not a landing pad, but a launching pad to empower individuals to move on to wherever it is. Affordable housing is working families just trying to maintain and sustain. Most recently, we have taken on the challenge and we're leading the initiative in permanent supportive housing. So permanent supportive housing is housing, and we, you touched on it a little bit, is housing basically that we're housing the unhoused. We're housing the most vulnerable homeless populations throughout California. It's in every city that National Core is in. We're trying to address this issue head on. Los Angeles, we have Project Home Key, which is transitional housing. Those are motels that are transformed into transitional housing for homeless. And then what we have is permanent supportive housing. Most recently here in Lake Forest, we have the Mountain View project, and that is in new construction. There are 8 permanent supportive housing units on site. So permanent supportive housing follows the Housing First model that was talked about earlier. People that come into permanent supportive housing out of homelessness want to be housed. We don't force them to be housed. They come through the coordinated entry system and usually come with through behavioral health. The service providers and everybody at this table are key in maintaining their success on site. Once we get people in housing, we want to keep people in housing. And National Core and Hope Through Housing, that's our model. We work very, I would say, on the services end, any partner that we partner with, we are coordinating constantly to ensure that these individuals stay housed. Coming out of homelessness is not easy, as you've heard throughout everybody speaking here today. Some people are chronically homeless coming into housing. Behaviors don't change overnight. But when someone wants to be housed and they come home, they try their hardest. And without service providers, such as everybody here at this table, Mercy House, South County Outreach, all the resources that are provided empower them to stay housed. So we're addressing that head on. I know that it's hard to understand sometimes. When we have permanent supportive housing, sometimes especially with our high acuity mental health, those are individuals that you may see on the street and are suddenly housed. Understand that with social services and behavioral health, sometimes these people have a team of 5 individuals that ensure that they're housed. So what we do is once National Core builds, and we consider them the house, and Hope Through Housing, which is the entity I work for, we're the heart. And with our service providers, we're addressing that homelessness head on, maybe not fast enough, but we're doing it. And we coordinate, I would say, on the daily, and that coordination, that relationship, those community resources, and us constantly, someone said earlier, how we rely on each other, that really attributes to the success of those who were formerly unhoused and have now become housed. It doesn't happen overnight, like I said before, but I think as a community and collectively, and everybody here on this list, including law enforcement, behavioral health, everybody plays a role. Once people are housed, it becomes less costly for the state because you don't have a homeless person calling an ambulance, going to the hospital, using police time. They're home. And so that's the goal for us in terms of how we're addressing homelessness. Affordability is one. We do low-income affordable housing, mixed-use housing. So, and we've addressed, I think, every population we've housed, from homeless seniors to high acuity mental health and transitional adult youth, which are youth coming out of foster care. We're addressing a lot of senior homelessness. A lot of people don't understand, and National Corps has taken a lead in this in certain parts of Southern California, is that the fastest growing population for homelessness is over the age of 55. And that is based on affordability in the state of California, and we're all feeling it right now. So you can imagine what a low-income senior is facing. Medicine and housing and medical costs sometimes come before eating and sometimes come before paying rent. So together we can do it. It's just not overnight. And you know, as a developer and as a housing provider, we're trying to lead that effort.
Hello, my name is Mariah Reenan. I am the Outreach Care Coordinator at the Orange County Rescue Mission. I'm here to just share, obviously, about what we do and who we are. We are a nonprofit in the city of Tustin. We are a long-term transitional back-to-work program. We also have other programs that I'll discuss about. So, the Village of Hope in Tustin, that is our back-to-work program. We take in people that kind of see that glimpse of hope of, you know what, I can do it, right? We want to meet them where they're at, and they'll come in and they'll pre-screen with us. That's the first step, is they'll pre-screen with us. The next step would be a second interview if they are fit for the program, and then we'll do a background check, and we'll give them a move-in date. What it looks like day-to-day basis of living at the Village of Hope is our students, we like to call them students, not residents. Our students, what they're learning is the routine of going back to work. That routine of, hey, I need to stay consistent. I need to wake up at this time, eat breakfast, go to work. With that, during their stay at the rescue mission, we provide full wraparound services, meaning on site we have a medical clinic called the HERT Clinic. We also have a dentist office, as well as optometrists, as well as a Trinity Law Clinic. So a lot of the people that come into the organization, we do see that, I believe there's, out of all the people that are there right now, there's 84%, they have substance abuse as well as mental health illnesses, and we really want to have them focus without having the stress of paying utility bills or rent, right? We really encourage them to pinpoint the root of the issue. So apart from the Back to Work program, long-term transitional Back to Work program, we also provide the Tustin's Veterans Outpost. So this specific program is for veterans, and it's more geared towards if they're a full-time college student in need of some affordable housing, they're able to live at the apartments, as well as full-time working. But within the Tustin Veterans Outpost, we also have a back-to-work program where they're able to learn how to be self-sufficient civilians. There we go. As more programs that we have would be, we have 2 affordable housings, one for specifically single women and children. The others are for families. Yeah, and so a little bit about my job. I'm an outreach care coordinator, and I'm more so on the field, not as much as the sheriffs and the officers, but my partner and I, we go out ever so often every day actually, not ever so often, every day to the jails or to the streets, and we talk to the people that are on the streets. And the important thing, like they said, is it's the community that works with the homelessness. We always will say, like, a good referral is good counsel. Yeah, at the rescue mission, we provide opportunities for these people, if they're willing, to get back on their feet and learn how to be self-sufficient. So that's it.
This is Mariah's first venture into this, so she's a little bit nervous.
She did a good
She's
job.
doing terrific. She's doing terrific, right? I, on the other hand, have done many of these, so I'm not nervous at all. My name is Chad Taylor. I work for the Orange County Sheriff's Department. I'm assigned to the city of Lake Forest. This is my second tenure in the city of Lake Forest. Originally from 2002 to 2007, I was a deputy here in the city. And then fortunately, 3 years ago, I was selected to be the, I know, right, lucky, to be selected as the lieutenant for the city of Lake Forest. So really quickly, just because I know there's going to be a lot of questions out there, I'm just going to make it really brief. Here in the city of Lake Forest, we have 2 full-time deputies assigned to matters regarding homeless or behavioral health issues. One deputy is assigned to the city. It's Deputy Ellis. She's sitting in the back there. You can stand up.
Stand up.
Stand up, Deputy
Stand up, Ellis.
She is phenomenal at what she does. The other deputy, Deputy Molson, I don't think he's here tonight. I think he's out in the field. So Deputy Ellis is assigned to what we call the Bayview Health Bureau, and Captain Patel is in charge of that unit, and he'll talk more details about that. The Bayview Health Unit's an overall unit that takes care of the division. So the city of Lake Forest is in the Southeast Division, and each city contributes a deputy, and they work as a team to go around to different cities within the division, because we recognized several years ago that just because you're dealing with a homeless problem in Mission Viejo or Lake Forest doesn't mean it's not going to pop up across the borders. We recognize borders and jurisdictions for deployment models, but persons experiencing homeless don't. So we figured we're going to have to go ahead and we're going to have to work as a team with the cities in the Southeast Division. So from there, I'm going to turn it over to Captain Patella.
Why am I even here? You're talking. You're giving the intro to my team.
All right, next.
Okay. So the Behavioral Health Bureau, my name is AJ Patel. I'm the captain for the Behavioral Health Bureau. It started as the homeless outreach team many years ago, but what became obvious pretty quickly is that not only does the homeless population, the majority have some mental health issues, but so do the majority of our calls for service. There's some sort of mental health nexus. So out of that, the sheriff created kind of expanded the homeless outreach concept into the behavioral health team. And to kind of really, our goal is really to do a professional, more appropriate response to mental health calls for service, and really with a goal to connect people to services and reduce recidivism, right? So to really explain how that works is to, once again, introduce our team. Deputy Ellis is the BHB representative out of Lake Forest. So she works along with 2 other deputies and a sergeant in the Southeast Division. And while they do proactive homeless engagement, they also respond to mental health calls for service, and they also do proactive engagement in that realm. So case management, people that pop up on the radar that may have some mental health issues, but not necessarily somebody that needs to go to jail. We can do proactive engagement and offer services and just touch base with the family, because it's not just the person that's suffering, right? It's the family as well. So her and her team will do that on a regular basis. And her sergeant back there, Sergeant Gonzalez, please stand up. He oversees this team.
He was standing up.
He was standing up. So he oversees his team, but what he also does is a sheriff laid down an edict about a year or so ago that all of our sworn personnel will go through crisis intervention training, 100%. And we're about 80% done, and Sergeant Gonzalez basically coordinates the entire course schedule, and he does most of the training and teaching. But what he also does, he coordinates our advanced crisis intervention training. So 25% of our personnel and all of our BHB personnel will actually go through an additional 24 hours of advanced crisis intervention training, which basically helps us to respond to those mental health crises, increases officer safety, and it also increases, or lessens, I should say, the trauma on the actual client or the person that we're responding to. And last but not least, in the back row, Deputy V and Topher. So this is a perfect example of the collaboration that we have with the healthcare agency. Topher is a behavioral health clinician that works for the healthcare agency. Deputy Villanueva is a part of our North BHB team. But what they are doing tonight is they're part of what we call a PERT team, a psychiatric emergency response team. So what they do at the beginning of the week, what Deputy Villanueva will do is he will basically go through all the calls for service for the week and see who needs that outreach and engagement, right, on the mental health side. And what they will do is they will basically make a case management list and travel around the county areas and do engagement with these people, offer them services, touch base with their families. But at the same time, if a call comes out in Lake Forest of a mental health crisis, they're listening to that radio and they're responding to that. And by them being there, it lessens that, the need for that typical law enforcement response. Not that our deputies aren't trained to do that, but it's better for the client. And that's one of the really good partnerships that we've started, and it's actually growing. We're actually expanding that to all of our divisions. It's going to be a full-time team. Deputy Villanueva is also part of that North team, and like I said, it may not make much sense to you guys down here, but if you've ever driven the 57 recently, you'll notice that the riverbed is quite clean. That's because of the work that Deputy Villanueva and his team do up on the north end of the county. That Santa Ana riverbed, as you remember, a couple years ago, was not pretty, and that thing is pristine right now, so that's all.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Doug Becht. I'm the Director of the Office of Care Coordination at the County of Orange. Our office is primarily responsible for coordinating efforts around addressing homelessness within the county. So within county departments like the healthcare agency, OC Community Resources, the Sheriff's Department, and then also working closely with local cities and nonprofit partners, many of the folks that are here on this dais tonight. Our office is also the administrative entity of the Continuum of Care, which is a local body required by the federal government that helps coordinate and prioritize funding that comes from the federal government. We're also the administrative entity for the Commission To End Homelessness, which is a advisory board to the Board of Supervisors that has a 20-member commission board that helps initiate and address policies around areas regarding homelessness. Our office is also responsible for coordinating and administering the point-in-time count, so the results that were mentioned earlier this evening. And then, lastly, I'll just mention, and then sort of kick it over for questions, is we administer roughly about 30 different contracts, a little over 30 different contracts to providers throughout the county to address homelessness. The areas that those contracts are focused in really run the entire sort of continuum of care. We administer funding related to outreach, prevention, shelter, and permanent housing. Those contracts also are focused across sort of the different subpopulations. So individuals, families, veterans, transition-aged youth, and several other subpopulations. Other than that, I think I'll kick it back over to the mayor.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
So right before we get to the questions, there's a couple of things I wrote down. So on Monday, I went to Stanton to go see their housing model, or their homeless model. They have a couple of outreach workers that work for the city with their public works. And I rode around with a couple of their outreach workers, and I did run into Deputy Villanueva when he showed up with public works. They were cleaning out one of their little what was it, like a wash or a
Flood control channel.
flood channel. So then I see him here. I was like, man, this guy's got a big area. So, and then I'm going to be going to Dana Point because they've got a similar model that I want to go take, because Lake Forest, we're exploring other ways to expand how we deal with, how we address homelessness in the city. But I do want to say something about Sergeant Gonzalez. He was nice enough to ask me to come help him with his critical incident training. So from time to time, I show up as an evaluator or as an actor, depending on how we want to do a scenario. But he has allowed me to come because I'm a instructional associate at Santa Ana College, so I go and help him do that. So I really appreciate him actually making his captain come tonight. So thank you. So Jonathan, where you at?
Right here, sir. Thank you. We have a lot of great questions. We're going to get to as many as we can. We will take all of these questions and give good, thoughtful answers and put them up on our website. So if you just go to www.lakeforestca.gov and then just type homeless in the search bar, the page will come up. And so the questions we don't get to, we'll have good answers there. And then I also should have mentioned that we're recording this tonight, and we'll run it on our social media channels and then also on Cox Cable 851 in the city, which is our city channel. I just wanted to touch on something real quick, and all the experts are here behind me, so I'm sure someone will help me get it right. Martin versus Boise was mentioned. That's a 2018 court case that pretty much changed what cities and governments can do when it comes to homeless. We get calls all the time of there's homeless people in a park, there's a homeless person here or there, why can't you just chase them off? And Martin v. Boise was a federal court decision, and I'm waiting for someone who really knows what they're talking about to jump in here, that declared that cities cannot enforce anti-loitering, anti-camping laws that someone is living unless you have a homeless bed available in your community. So Lake Forest, of course, we're not in the shelter business. We believe that's a county function because, as it was mentioned up here, people move along boundaries. So we can't force someone to, quote unquote, move along unless we have a shelter bed available. So our process here is the sheriff's deputies, who are specially trained, work with outreach workers from Mercy House, and they get to know the homeless individuals in our community. They find appropriate programs because there may be a homeless or a transitional something available for, say, a male veteran, or there may be something available for a single mother. And then they try to gain the trust of those individuals. And when they gain that trust, they try to move them into a program that's appropriate for them, or connect them back with their families somewhere else, if that's it. So Mayor Pequeño, before he launched his career in public politics, was actually a sheriff's deputy and the city's first homeless officer, so he's got some unique insight. So I just wanted to let you know that's sort of the backdrop that we work with, and then all of the agencies up here are partners with the city. The city gets money, and we have Ron Santos in the back who works very closely with this. We get community development block grant money, which is basically federal money that we then use for housing improvements and working with transitional agencies. So that's our relationship with these agencies here, and it may come up in a little more detail and maybe a little more accuracy. So the first question is, the state has proposed establishing a care court in all the counties in the state that would force someone to either accept help and go into a program or essentially go to jail. It's a governor's proposal, would put some teeth in there. That's not true? Well, let me read this. I'll read the question. Thank you, sir. So it says, for the homeless who suffer from psychosis or severe drug addiction, which would require compliance, this would take the treatment resistant off the streets. The bills are AB 2830 and SB 1338. So is one, Mayor, I know you have some thoughts about this. This is ask whether the Lake Forest government's going to support it, but speaking for yourself, is this something you support? And then with all of our experts up there, is this something that you think is a viable solution to help solve part of the issue?
So basically mandating people get mental health, that's very difficult, because then you're starting to run into constitutional issues. I think that'll bring, in my opinion, that'll bring undue litigation to our city. So if the state wants to pass that, they can. If the state wants to pass it, they can, and we'll support it. But I think it's going to be difficult. I think they need to couple that with substance abuse. They need to mandate substance abuse on top of mental health.
Aware of this or following it, or have any thoughts about it?
Go ahead.
Thank you. We'll move on to our next questions. So a few speakers have talked about people who are homeless but don't want help. Is that always true, or is it more that what's the services they're offering are not what they want or need? So let's talk a little bit about service resistance and what causes that and what helps to overcome that.
I can start with that. So the United Way had a roundtable a couple months ago, and actually they had, was it today, Maddie? The service resistance workshop? Is it today or tomorrow? I think it's tomorrow. There are some people who are going to be service resistant, obviously. There's trust issues, there's fear, there's being let down. There's sometimes just they don't want to do what you're asking them to do. We're not seeing that often. I mean, when you have a mom and dad who are in a car with their kids and they want them to be in a bed, and someone says, hey, we might have a place for you, they're not saying, oh no, we prefer for our children to be sitting in this car every night wondering where we're going to go to get our next meal and no place to cook it. So yeah, there are some people who are going to be service resistant, but the majority of people are looking for a place they feel comfortable and can call home.
If I can jump on that. When I was speaking earlier about the different types of homelessness, the service resistant is that really small percentage of your chronic that will be service resistant. The transitional and the episodical and the hidden will take that service when it's offered to them. Sure.
I won't drop. The other thing I'd like to add is I always ask, who's asking? How are they asking the question? What are they wearing? What's the relationship they've built? Because there are families that, the majority of families are not service resistant, but there's a fear. There's a very real fear. I don't know you. I don't know what you'll do what will you take away my children? So I think it's something we can ask ourselves across all subpopulation. Who's asking? How are they asking? What are they wearing? What's the relationship? Really taking a look at building that trust to Saddleback's, that relational piece allows for you to open the door and have those more difficult conversations.
Excellent, thank you. What could Lake Forest do in the next 1 year or 5 years that would help improve the housing supply in our city? And I know National Corps mentioned we're partnering with them right now on a 71 unit over by the post office. And in that case, the city used funds collected from developers who didn't want to build affordable housing in their own project. They contributed to a fund. The city let that fund build up to a good number and then partnered with National Corps. And we just broke ground last week on a 51-unit senior affordable housing project that'll be up in the Portola Hills area. And of course, we have the Baker Ranch project, and then the Nikasi project down across from Home Depot will have an affordable senior element as well. But what else could the city be doing, and what else maybe that you're seeing elsewhere that's really helping?
So I guess I'll take that one. I went National Court, like I said, what the city has done, we've looked at our housing element, we submitted it. The state is mandating X amount that we do for affordable housing, and we're meeting that RENA those numbers, and we've actually in our general plan, we have identified areas in the city that we can build affordable housing.
I apologize. I don't want to be taking over, but the only thing I would ask just back to the audience is there is so much that we can do as residents to support development. which makes it so much easier to move development forward. So I think there's a lot of opportunity across the board, whether it's outreach, education, touring affordable housing projects, how beautiful they are, they're not different, seeing the services that are provided, just being able to really support these projects would be critical.
Yeah, and I think it's that affordable housing has so many faces, right? It's families, it's seniors. It's also building, like, in an area like Lake Forest, affordability for people who work here, who work in a lot of your restaurants, and who work in your hotel industry, so that they can afford to live in the city that they work in. So it's like she was just saying, you know, being able to support development, and when it comes to city council, come out and support it, that it is needed in your community, so.
All right, thank you very much. If someone calls 211, what's the average time that it takes to find adequate housing for that caller?
I can answer that. So one of the things we do on the service end is we get a lot, we don't do housing placement or housing referral, but we get a lot of it. And so lately we've been doing a lot of the referrals to 211. A lot of times 211, we're the city, every city, it's not just Lake Forest, it's San Diego, it's LA. The wait lists are long, shelters are overrun. And so it could be frustrating for someone just trying to find housing, or even learning how to navigate the affordable housing wait lists. What does that look like? I kind of think we should have more education on that. And we're not, you know, it's hard for an individual to find affordable housing. I will say that. What I would say is once these developments open in your community, watch the sign in front, find out when the lease up, call your city, and neighbors, friends, or whoever you know that's in need of affordable housing, make sure that they get in the lease up right away. It's probably the best way is getting on the ground, because it's not easy to navigate the system for housing. We could do better overall in California. We really could.
Question here about vouchers, and what's the answer to the lack of housing for the 90% of voucher holders who can't find an apartment? So how does the voucher system work, and is it successful?
This is another hot topic right now. We see a lot of people with Section 8 that aren't able to find housing based on affordability. It used to be that the voucher matched the market during COVID. Now that we've hit that cliff, rent is higher, and it's not, the voucher is lower than what's market rate is, and affordable housing wait lists are overran. They're long, they're closed. And so it's becoming really, really difficult. And then people have a time frame, right? They have that time frame to get that housing voucher, to get housing. And if they can't find it, they could lose their voucher. And so our system, it could be better. I think everybody would agree just on the voucher part of it, and seeing, we all go above and beyond to help our most vulnerable and to help especially families in need, seniors in need with vouchers. And it's navigating a system. I almost think we should have resources on just how to navigate that. Yeah, I don't know if anybody else has similar with their clients.
Yeah, so I'll speak from, I guess I'll say the county's perspective. My colleagues who oversee the Orange County Housing Authority, I think would agree. So one thing that's important to note about housing vouchers at the moment is that the federal government has issued, I think it's over 70,000 emergency housing vouchers throughout the country. And here in Orange County, we received a little over 1,000 vouchers, which for our system, and when I say we, I mean the 4 housing authorities here in Orange County. That means the Orange County Housing Authority, Garden Grove, Santa Ana, and Anaheim Housing Authority. So this is a large influx of vouchers. And I think what was previously said about affordability is, obviously a real challenge. Getting a voucher doesn't mean you've got a home. You now need to go find one. The county and the cities that have housing authorities have done a good job pairing those vouchers with housing navigation and support services to help an individual go find a unit and then support them as they transition into it. The one thing that I'll say is this is one area where the community can be incredibly helpful. We are looking for units for individuals to be able to use that voucher. And you don't need to be a large landlord. I think that that's sometimes people believe, you know, in order to utilize an emergency housing voucher or a Section 8 voucher, you need to be a large landlord with many units, and you need to have that infrastructure. If you have one unit that's available, you can really help someone exit homelessness. So we'd really encourage folks that have one or two units that they're renting out and they're looking for, you know, a tenant. One of the things that I'll say about Section 8 is that it guarantees that you're going to get paid each month. The other piece is that, like I mentioned before, it comes with support services. And very importantly, I think most importantly for the folks here that clearly have an interest in help being the solution to homelessness, this is one very, very tangible way that you can address homelessness as a citizen here, you know, in Orange County. So.
May I add one comment here? I just want to hammer home how unprecedented it is for us to have this many vouchers. I've been at Families Forward for 10 years. The last time the wait list opened for Orange County Housing Authority was 2012. In 2 weeks, we had 50,000 applications, and they're still processing through those applications. So to have 1,054 vouchers come into our system, it's unheard of. And it's a critical time for us to keep these vouchers. And only last comment I want to say is I wish we could rename the word Section 8. I think there's a lot of stigma that you may have heard out in the community. There's a Section 8 holder. We can call it the rainbow voucher. I don't care what we call it. But these are families that have secured permanent subsidy that can be with them, where they can have to guarantee their tenancy, be on good behavior to keep this voucher. They are more likely to be successful than any other tenant that walks through that front door. So I just wanted to hammer that home. We really need the community's support.
The mayor gave me a high sign for just a couple more questions, but there was one that's quick. I'm going to look over to my city manager. It asks whether any of our support goes to for-profit services when we're dealing with the homeless. I don't know. So it's all nonprofit services that we work with. So a two-part question. What percentage of homeless people or families have pets that need assistance? And then we have someone here from the Pet Adoption Center of Orange County. How can they partner with other community organizations to help those that have pets and are affected?
So Lavelle and I could probably speak to that. I've always kind of kid around to say we need a temporary housing because, you know, a lot of shelters and places may not be able to accept animals. And so they're part of the family. So part of that is critical problem solving, finding temporary solutions, but more importantly with the Housing First model, we're getting them into permanent housing. And that's housing that's gonna accept their animal. And so making sure that they have the stability to have a place where their whole family is intact, then focusing on those supportive services. But there's always a need for more community resources. It's definitely an area that, you know, it's been a true passion of mine. And if there are any others of you out there who want to talk about it, come see me after. I don't know if you.
I would say we have a project in San Diego that's 100% permanent supportive with seniors. They've been in the project for 2 years. That pet aspect is now coming to light a little more. They need companions. They are disabled, so they qualify for the service companion animal. And we even have one of our partners that is their permanent supportive housing also. It was interesting how they built in washing stations for pets on the property. So there is a need for the population for the mental health part. I think it is something, once they get into housing, that it's important. And actually, I just partnered with somebody in San Diego for that reason, is to provide that support for individuals who are very low income to support their pets as well. And it's part of the services.
Yeah, people will turn down their a housing opportunity if they can't bring their pet. We find that quite often. It takes a long time to find a unit, and if we find a unit that is not pet friendly, that person, they'll live in a car or on the street, so it's tough. Yeah.
Okay, real quick here, there's a question about whether we're considering a community center for homeless and at-risk people for Safe Haven Connect with all the resources up here. Not necessarily within the city, but we're going to do a better job of keeping everything on our website updated. These are all local organizations, and so with the internet nowadays, we're about to roll out a new website. We'll be able to get all those resources up there. Captain, I want to ask you the last question and put you. There's two Captain.
I go by AJ.
AJ, if you could, or if one of your deputies here could, do you have a short success story that's somebody that was on the street and through your efforts, through the efforts here, that sort of an example for us how it can work?
Actually, Deputy Ellis had one last week where she.
All right, Ellis, come up here.
I didn't mean for her to come up and do it. I was.
No,
gonna
I
say-
do. Come on,
There you
Deputy
go.
Ellis.
Sorry, I've been overruled.
Happy note here that it does work. Thank you, Deputy Ellis.
I did have it was an elderly mother who was about 78 years old and her daughter who was also older living in their car with their animal. I had been looking for them. We had gotten multiple contacts saying that they were living out of their car and they're looking for assistance. I did get a hold of them, speak with them. We spoke with Jonay and Mercy House. While she was trying to get housing, we found out that they were actually had previously been residents in Stanton, so we reached out to their outreach team, and between all of us, we were able to get them some housing temporarily inside of a motel. So they are housed now inside of a motel. So that was one.
I actually have one more. A quick one. Okay, so about a month or so ago, Deputy Villanueva and his partner. This thing on?
Yes.
Okay, part of their normal process when they are going to do cleanups in the flood control channel, they go down and clear it out before the workers go down. And they went down, they actually found a homeless individual with the needle still sticking out of his hand. And they did CPR on him for 15 minutes, 4 Narcan doses, and saved his life. If they would have been 5 minutes later, he'd have been dead. So, yeah, I just wanted to highlight that one. That's a success story.
Well, I want to thank everybody for coming, and I want to especially thank all of our panelists for coming and spending an afternoon with the city of Lake Forest, so just we can showcase what our city is doing to address homelessness, and just for our city, but I know you guys are doing it across the state and across the county, so thank you.